Good day everyone, Complaining Gamer here. Cyberpunk 2077 Associate Design Director Kyle Rowley and level designer Miles Tost shared a ton of new Cyberpunk 2077 information during E3 2018 when speaking with Jeff Keighley and GameSpot. I took the time to organise and condense the information in a logical, digestible way so you can learn what you want quicker. Below you'll find timestamps and links to the original full interviews. The categories are narrative and lore, first-person perspective, customization, gameplay and classes, difficulty and combat, vehicles and world traversal, day-night cycle and online co-op. If this video helps you out, make sure to leave a like, and to keep up to date with all my content, why not subscribe? Enjoy.
Story is one thing that we want to keep that under wraps, but we'll be open to talking about how the gameplay works. What the player can do in the game. So yeah,
we're not saying anything about the story for the time being. I mean, the main thing that you can take away is obviously it's a CD Projekt Red game. So as you said, choice and consequence is super important. The decisions you make inside quests while talking to characters, how you build your how you actually build up your character can massively affect the narrative experience for sure. Yeah, so it's going to be non-linear. And it's like what people expect from a CD Projekt Red games.
I mean, we've been working super closely with Mike Pondsmith, who's like the creator of the 2020 rulebook. I mean, for sure, there's a lot of aspects from the 2020 rulebook which is built into the lore. So obviously, we take the city as a whole. The city itself is based. Night City is based on the 2020 rulebook. There's a lot of characters from the 2020 who will make an appearance in 2077. We can't go into details about how it will work or anything like that, but for sure there's characters from the lore that you can expect to find there. Yeah, so it's set in Night City, which is on the coast of California.
Gotcha.
It's in between actually Los Angeles and San Francisco.
Okay, cool.
But it's a fictional city.
Yeah.
So again, it gives us liberties to basically do as we want. Obviously, there's heavy inspiration from like Los Angeles and San Francisco and San Diego and all those kind of things. We have all those elements in the city. And a bit like we really wanted to kind of emphasize the fact that there's 6 unique districts inside the city. So it's not like when you're traveling through, it's going to feel the same all the time. It kind of comes back to what I was talking about when you'll have the noir feeling and you'll have the days and night cycle. You'll also have kind of more upkept areas with the like high rich corporates are staying, but you'll have areas like Pacifica which are kind of totally overrun with gangs, and it's just like they kind of own the streets. It's very depressing. Like poverty is like everywhere. So it's like you'll definitely, as you're traveling through the city and your different districts, you'll definitely feel the difference between the districts. So it won't feel the same wherever you're playing.
Okay.
So the game is a first-person perspective role-playing game.
Okay.
There's a few reasons for that. The main thing that we really, we're spending a lot of time on creating this like a very detailed cyberpunk world set in Night City. It's all handcrafted. There's a lot of atmosphere. We really want the player to feel the depression and the fact that like these mega corporations are kind of stamping down on people's lives and kind of like this, and to kind of really showcase that and to kind of really immerse the player in that world, we decided that the first-person perspective was the best way of doing it. And so it's first-person. Doesn't mean it's a first-person shooter or anything like that. The game is definitely a role-playing game.
The game is definitely in first-person perspective.
Yeah.
It's a narrative-driven, open-world RPG. That's the stuff you come to expect from CD Projekt Red.
Yeah.
One of the things that we're obviously really emphasizing the fact that it's a first-person perspective role-playing game.
Will there be a third-person mode?
No. The game is exclusively first-person outside of a few outside of cuts. We have some cutscenes which are done in, so you can see in third person.
See your character, this amazing character you built, right?
Yes, and vehicles. We also have a third-person perspective camera.
Got contacted by a person earlier today who was saying like, man, first person, that doesn't even sound like a CD Projekt game anymore. And to that I would like to say, first person absolutely makes sense for us because our company has always been about creating high-quality role-playing games, and only by using first person for this game, we've been truly able to achieve a very immersive experience. The player's never been able to get this close to the action, right? We've created an entire new gameplay-driven dialogue system that works entirely because you are in first person. And to those of you who are afraid of not being able to see your character because you're gearing them up, making them look pretty, as Kyle said here, there will be cutscenes where you get to see your character, and also, of course, the inventory.
Inventory, character panel, like
right.
Yeah.
You'll see them. All right.
So the player plays as V, and yeah, we have a full character creation system in the game.
Yep.
So you'll be able to define your gender, whether it's male or female. You'll be able to define how you look. So we have various different body types, hairstyles, clothes, tattoos, makeups, and many, many more. And obviously, you can define your what we're calling life path. It's like a backstory. And the things you define in your life path and your backstory can modify or unlock different things as you're playing through the game. Yeah, so we have both a male and female voiced V.
One of the key things we try to focus on is, of course, give players control, right? Give players control of their character, the stories, the choices they make, etc. And that's something that we write really, really big when we create a role-playing game. So Cyberpunk will feature a full customization system for your character. You can choose whether you want to play as a male or a female character. You can choose your backstory, and all of that will actually even influence the way people perceive you in the world.
Now, at the start of the game, we don't actually have any kind of classes that you pick from.
Okay.
Obviously, in Cyberpunk 2020, there's lots of different roles that you can partake on, so corporate, rocker boy, netrunner, techie, etc. At the start of the game, you're not picking any of those classes. Basically, as you're progressing through the game, you're modifying and adjusting your class based on the attributes, the perks you pick, the sideware you install. So it's a very fluid class system. We don't lock you in at the very start of the game or anything like that. So, as I said before, the classes and the roles are prevalent in the game. We're kind of focusing on three main ones for the actual game itself. So netrunner, techie, and the solo. But it's not like, as I said, it's not like you kind of pick one at the start and then you just play with it through the way through. You basically craft your class or your archetype as you're playing through the game. So hypothetically, you can have bits of techie and bits of netrunner and bits of solo, and you can kind of combine them. The other cool classes that are in there, like in the game in general, like Rocker Boy and Corporate, they're kind of more in there from a lore perspective, from a story perspective. You'll encounter characters who represent those other alternate roles, but it's not something that we're going to allow the player to necessarily play with. We're not doing any kind of level scaling, really. I mean, we basically have two forms of experience. We have like standard experience, which you'll gain from completing core missions. And then we have what we call street cred, which is an alternate experience you gain from doing side missions.
Right.
And actually, when you're completing both main quests and side quests, you kind of get a bit of both, but we kind of we split the amount of each XP depending on if you're doing a main or side mission.
Okay. So
main missions kind of get core XP, and side missions get the street cred. Street cred's basically a way for you to, based on your street cred level, you can unlock different vendors, and we'll unlock different fixers. Fixers are kind of like mission givers in this world, right? So they'll give you jobs to do, and you get access to new fixers as you're kind of leveling up your street cred. So.
Okay. What is the gameplay like?
It's going back to the pen and paper RPGs, obviously the feeling of choice, as Miles touched on. So we want to translate that to the gameplay as well. So it's not going to be a case of you. It's not going to be a case of you playing one like single archetype that you stick with through the whole experience. You're going to have the ability to modify and adjust the class on the fly. Yep. We're calling it a fluid class system. Everybody starts out at a base level, so everybody kind of starts out from the same, and we gradually introduce different mechanics through cyberware, and then eventually it kind of splits out, and you can basically, we're focusing on kind of three main classes from the pen and paper. They're the netrunner, the techie, and the solo. Okay. And depending on perks you pick, skills you have, attributes you've decided to take up at the start of the game, and when you're progressing and leveling up, you can basically go into one of these three or kind of combine them in that. The game's going to be, I would say it's going to be hard. Like, you're going to be at low health a lot. You're going to have to use heal yourself a lot. So the game's going to feel deadly. It needs to feel lethal. We want it to feel brutal. It needs to feel deadly, lethal, like I said. So
we have both ranged combat. So we have guns, and we have melee-based combat as well. So, and obviously, we learned quite a lot from the combat in Witcher 3. And we're translating that, to kind of go back to your other question, we're translating the lessons we learned in the gameplay about how to do melee and try and transfer it to Cyberpunk. Obviously, it's very different in the fact that we're now doing it from a first-person perspective rather than from the third person. But the lessons that we learned in Witcher, we can definitely translate. Yeah, so in weapons-wise, we have basically there's three main types of weapons that you can, three kind of gameplay-themed style weapons that we have. We have power weapons, which are focused on like traditional weapons that you would have nowadays. So they're when you fire them, we may have, for example, exaggerated hit reactions and staggers to kind of emphasize the hit impacts. And then we have tech weapons, which are kind of focused on penetrating through walls and objects and NPCs and stuff like that. And then we have smart weapons, which are basically weapons which can track and follow targets around the game. We're again, because, and I keep going back to it, but because we're a role-playing game and we understand some people aren't necessarily averse to Twitch-based combat who like playing role-playing games. We tried to design, for example, the smart weapons around being something that people can pick up and play casually without necessarily have to be super efficient with shooting people in the head with more Twitch-based, reaction-based combat. So we're trying to cater to both audiences there with that. So, yeah.
We have combat, so we're going to have guns. We're going to have a full melee system.
It's a very dangerous place that you're living in. So basically, you'll have to watch out for danger at every corner. Enemies will try to mug you, to rob you. So naturally, you will be drawn into combat. And in that, you'll be able to use a variety of different skills depending on how you choose to build your character. That could be if you want to use the mantis blades. Some of you might remember it from the reveal trailer, these blades that come out of the arm to slice up your enemies. Or maybe you want to be more of a netrunner type character that uses viruses to upload into their enemies to jam their weapons. There's a wide variety of different abilities that you can use and that you can choose depending on how you want to play the game.
And I think the pacing of the combat and how it feels will ultimately be decided by how you build your character. So if you want to play it as someone who goes to cover, like doesn't want to get damaged a lot and is more tactical, it's totally viable. If you want to play as someone who's more agile, like we call it the fast solo, it's someone who's basically maneuvering around the battlefield at speed. We have mechanics like double jumping and wall running and stuff like that. So the combat's not necessarily linear either. We have arenas that allow you to move around anywhere you kind of want. So it's really depends on how you've decided to build your character will ultimately affect the feeling of how it plays. Yeah. So
we will be getting around in vehicles. Okay. We're only really talking about right now is that for sure we're going to have motorcycles and we're going to have drivable cars. Okay. But the other vehicles that potentially in the game, we're not talking too much about that stuff right now. I mean, we have them obviously in the trailer, the AVs, and for sure they're going to be big narrative. They're going to be narrative set pieces where we utilize AVs a lot, but we're not talking about anything about the actual like. Okay.
We have motorbikes and we have cars for sure. Yes. That's about. We're not talking anymore about vehicles other than those.
So can I drive a car or no?
Yes, you can drive a car. Okay. Yes, you can ride a motorcycle. Okay. We don't want you to be driving all the time, so we're trying to building the city in a way that it's kind of like. I mean, internally we kind of call them like RPG hubs areas, and so the city's made up of 6 unique districts.
So like quick travel sort of points.
And and so inside each district we have a lot of like you get this kind of sense of claustrophobia, and everything's kind of very close to each other. So we'll have like vendors, and you can find quest givers, and all the kind of side content inside these kind of smaller areas, and then they're connected through roads. So it's not like you're going to be driving all the time. We kind of want to we want a player to explore the world on foot because it's such an awe-inspiring place. Wow. So we really want you to, especially because we have so much vertical exploration compared to what we had in Witcher 3, we really want you to push you to exploring these crevices everywhere in first person, not necessarily driving everywhere, but you know.
The game has a full day-night cycle with weather systems, so you get to experience both daytime and nighttime, and for sure we'll have that neon cityscape that people really are craving for.
Veronica wants to know, will there be any form of cooperative play? Any ability to have any kind of online connection to other players?
We're not talking about anything online related at the moment, basically.
Okay. So that's not a confirm or deny?
No, I mean... Basically,
it's a single-player experience.
Exactly. You're not ruling it out, I guess.
It's a single-player experience, first and foremost, basically. Everything, like, we want to create a narrative-driven, open-world RPG that people want to play from CD Projekt Red. So for sure, its primary focus is on single-player.
We all are excited to see it when we're allowed to see it. All right, well, Cyberpunk 2077 coming soon, I guess, is what we can say from CD Projekt Red.
When it's ready.
Yeah, when it's ready, that's the classic.